My name is Elena Carter. I'm 28 years old, and for 3 years, every job I applied for mysteriously disappeared. Not because I failed the interview, not because I lacked experience, but because someone kept calling my employers and telling them I had a criminal record, a felony theft charge. The problem was simple. I had never committed a crime in my life. And it took me 3 years to discover something even worse. The person destroying my life was my own father. But the real twist? My grandmother had known this would happen long before I did. I grew up in a small town called Mill Ridge, Ohio. Population barely 4,000. The kind of town where everyone knows your name and your business. People believed the Carter family was perfect. My father, Robert Carter, worked as a plant manager for nearly 20 years. My mother, Linda, volunteered at every charity event in town. From the outside, we looked like the ideal American family. But inside our house, things were different. Rules controlled everything. I didn't get my own house key until I was 20 years old. My parents monitored every dollar I earned. When I was 14, I started working after school at a local diner. Every paycheck went into a joint bank account my mother managed. She said it was for my future. I trusted her. I never questioned it. Because growing up, questioning my parents simply wasn't allowed. When I graduated high school, I finished at the top of my class. One day, my guidance counselor pulled me aside. She looked at me carefully and said something I had never seriously considered before. Elena, you could get scholarships. You should apply to college. For the first time in my life, I imagined leaving town. I brought the college brochures home. My father didn't even open them. He simply placed them on the kitchen table and said, "College is for people who don't know how to work." And that was the end of the conversation. So I stayed. I cooked, I cleaned, I helped my mother around the house. And every evening at dinner, my father would say the same thing. "You have a roof, food, and family. What more do you need?" For years, I believed him. Until the day something inside me changed. A week after my 25th birthday, I was standing in the kitchen washing dishes. Same sink, same sponge, same routine I'd followed since I was a teenager. And suddenly, a thought hit me. What if I was still standing in this exact spot 15 years from now? The idea terrified me. The next morning, I walked to the public library. I sat at one of the old computers and created a brand new email address, my own email, not the family one. Then I searched for jobs. The first listing I found was for a hardware store 20 minutes away, full-time, benefits, a real opportunity. My hands were shaking when I submitted the application, but for the first time in years, I felt hope. 2 days later, they invited me for an interview. I thought my life was finally about to begin. I had no idea it was about to fall apart. The interview started perfectly. The manager shook my hand and asked about my work experience. Then his expression suddenly changed. "Elena, is there anything in your background we should know about?" I was confused. "No," I replied. He hesitated. "We received a call yesterday," he said. "Someone told us you had a felony theft charge." My stomach dropped. "That's not true," I said immediately. "I've never been arrested." The manager believed me, but believing someone and hiring someone are two very different things. The interview ended right there. At first, I thought it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe someone with a similar name had a record. So I applied for another job, then another, then another. Each interview went the same way. Everything would go well until the employer mentioned a phone call. Someone kept warning them about me. At first, I thought it was a prank. But after the fourth rejection, something felt wrong. Someone was deliberately sabotaging my life. The question was, who? The answer came one night when my parents were asleep. I went into my mother's sewing room looking for a stapler. Inside her desk drawer, I found a small blue notebook. When I opened it, my entire world collapsed. On the left side were the names of every business I'd applied to. On the right side were red check marks, and next to each one, a note. Called manager. Told them about criminal charge. My mother had written every entry. She'd been tracking my job applications and warning employers not to hire me. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. This wasn't an accident. My parents had been destroying my future on purpose. The next morning, I placed a notebook on the kitchen table and asked my mother to explain it. She burst into tears, but not because she felt guilty, because I looked through her drawer. My father stayed perfectly calm. Then he said something I will never forget. If you walk out that door, you leave with nothing. That was his ultimatum. Stay under his control or lose everything. That night, I packed a small backpack, 2 shirts, a toothbrush, my phone charger, and 1 photograph of my grandmother. Before leaving, I checked my bank account, the account that held 10 years of savings. The balance was 0. My parents had taken every dollar. When I walked out the front door, I had $12 in my pocket, no documents, no savings, no home. But for the first time in my life, I was free. Freedom turned out to be harder than I imagined. I slept in a homeless shelter. I showered in gas stations. I ate whatever the shelter kitchen served. And every time I tried to get a job, the same thing happened. Another phone call, another rumor, another rejection. My parents were still sabotaging my life even after I left. It felt like I would never escape them. Until the morning everything changed. 7 months after I left home, someone knocked on the shelter door. A woman stepped inside wearing a gray coat and carrying a leather briefcase. She walked straight towards me. "Are you Elena Carter?" she asked. I nodded. She sat down beside me and opened the briefcase. Inside were documents, recordings, evidence. Then she said 7 words that changed my life forever. "Your grandmother hired me to find you." My grandmother had suspected my father's behavior for years. Before she passed away, she hired a private investigator. She wanted proof of the lies, proof of the sabotage, and she got it. The briefcase contained recordings of my parents calling employers, fabricated police reports, even recordings of them discussing how to keep me dependent. But there was something else inside the briefcase, a letter, and then a legal document. My grandmother had created a trust fund for me, $340,000. She'd known one day I might need a way out, so she built one. For 3 years, my parents tried to trap me. They tried to convince the world I was a criminal. They tried to make sure I would always come crawling back home. But they forgot something. Someone else had been watching. Someone who believed in me long before I believed in myself. My grandmother. And thanks to her, the life they tried to destroy was finally mine to rebuild.